We need space from you. We don't want you in our life anymore. My aunt typed the words first, then added a heart like it softened the knife. My mother replied with a thumbs up. My cousin tossed in a prayer emoji as if exile could be sanctified with pixels. For a second I stared at the screen and felt the room tilt. The fan kept circling, the evening kept pretending to be normal, but something inside me fell through a quiet flaw. You know that moment when your chest is too crowded for breath? When your own name sounds foreign in your mouth. That was me, in my own apartment, holding a phone that suddenly weighed like a brick from a house I didn't live in anymore. Hy everyone, my name is Briar. Listen. I speak softly until I need to be loud, and tonight my silence did the shouting. The people who raised me just told me I was disposable, so I did the only honest thing. I looked at what they really loved. Not me. Not my boundaries. Not the way I showed up to birthday cakes I wasn't invited to cut. They loved convenience. And in our family, convenience has a routing number. My uncle, Mom's brother, packed their boxes after Sunday dinner, scooping framed photos into tubs like they were groceries. He texted me a picture of my childhood violin sticking out of a bag labeled miscellaneous. He smiled in the background. I think he thought he was winning something. My fingers moved before my fear did. Of course, I typed back to the family thread, I'll cancel my direct deposits first thing. Then I set the phone down like I'd just set down a match. Because love should be not a subscription. And if I'm the autopay that keeps their lights humming while they dim mine, then I'm allowed to flip a switch. I walked to the window and watched the city hold its breath, a dog barking, a bus sighing, a neighbor's TV laughter leaking through the wall. In the reflection I saw myself not crying. I saw my shoulders unclench. I saw a woman I almost recognized. The phone buzzed once, twice, then steadied into a low, constant tremor, little earthquakes of outrage. Briar, let's be reasonable. Don't be dramatic. This is exactly why we need space. Somewhere, a drawer slammed. Somewhere, a keychain jingled like a warning. I typed nothing. I made tea. I pulled the folder from my desk, the one with bank statements, receipts, the tuition wire I paid for a niece who calls me extra. I set it on the table like a lantern. By midnight, the family thread lit up like sirens outside a dark house, and the first secret began to crack. The first secret was always money. It wasn't even hidden well. A wire transfer here, a temporary loan there. My father once told me, family debt isn't real debt, because blood is collateral. I used to believe him. Until I realized blood doesn't pay interest, and collateral can bleed dry. When my phone wouldn't stop vibrating that night, I laid each message beside the receipts I'd kept for years. Every dollar had a story, stories they never told the neighbors. The mortgage I saved when my brother forgot to file taxes. The $7,800 credit card bill I paid after my cousin's emergency trip to Cancun. The $15,000 transfer I made so my mother's roof wouldn't cave, while she told church friends it was her blessing. The irony? They loved the money but despised the hands that gave it. At 12:17 a.m., a message from my uncle landed like a stone in water. Don't do anything hasty, Briar. You know how much the family relies on you. Relies. That word echoed in my chest like an insult. They didn't rely on me, they drained me. And when I refused to be a reservoir anymore, suddenly I was dramatic, toxic, too much. I walked across my small living room, each step heavy with memory. Their laughter at dinners when the bill slid toward me. My aunt's casual line, "You're the stable one, Briar, you don't mind." My cousin's joke, "She's basically the family ATM with hair." The worst part? I smiled through it. Smiled while my throat burned, because love makes you perform generosity like it's oxygen. But love without respect is a chokehold. That night, I opened my laptop. My fingers hovered, trembling, then steadied. I logged into the bank portal. Rows of transfers glowed at me like confessionals. Cancel. 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 Each click was louder than their messages, louder than my shaking breath. At 12:44 a.m., I closed the laptop and leaned back. Silence stretched across the room. For once, it wasn't terrifying, it was mine. The phone rang again. My mother's name flashed, then disappeared. Then my father's. Then a cousin. Then all of them, a chorus of desperate calls. Their voices filled the voicemail box I didn't check. Outside, A car slowed near my building. Headlights brushed my window like someone searching. My tea had gone cold. My hands were warm. That was the moment I realized, this wasn't just money. This was survival, and survival has consequences. And by morning, the first consequence was already knocking. The knock came at 8:06 a.m. Sharp. Measured. The kind of knock that knows your name before you answer. I stood still, barefoot on the wooden floor, clutching the mug I'd reheated but never sipped. My phone was still buzzing on the counter, vibrating itself closer to the edge. Another knock, 3 beats, like a gavel. I opened the door halfway, my chain still fastened. And there stood my uncle, suit jacket wrinkled, tie loose, a man who always carried himself like a lawyer even when he wasn't one. His eyes flicked past me, searching my apartment as if I'd hidden a treasure. "Briar," he said, smoothing his voice, "this isn't the way to handle things. Family disagreements shouldn't be public." I almost laughed. Public? The only audience had been the glow of my bank screen. Yet he looked at me like I'd already staged a scandal. I cancelled the deposits, I told him, steady but soft. The chain rattled as I leaned closer. "That's not public. That's private. That's me reclaiming what was mine." His jaw tightened. He pressed a folder through the crack in the door. "They're upset. They're saying you're threatening the family's stability. They want explanations." I didn't take the folder. Instead, I let silence pool between us. Behind him, the hallway smelled of someone else's burnt toast. Somewhere down the stairs, a child laughed. For one disorienting moment, it felt like a normal morning. Explanations. I whispered. Where were their explanations when I paid off their secrets? He didn't flinch, but he didn't answer either. His silence was an admission. I closed the door gently, the folder still dangling from his hand. He didn't knock again. I slid the chain back and pressed my forehead to the wood, feeling its cool weight. By the time I turned, my phone had stopped buzzing. Instead, one message pulsed at the center of the screen from my mother. "You'll regret this. We always take care of our own." I stared at the words until they blurred. Take care of our own. The phrase felt like a threat disguised as tradition. And I realized, for the first time, that family loyalty could look a lot like blackmail, just written in softer fonts. I didn't sleep that night. The phrase "we always take care of our own" kept echoing like a curse, wrapping around every thought. By dawn, my apartment felt smaller, the walls pressed closer. I brewed coffee I couldn't taste and opened the folder my uncle had left outside my door. Inside were copies of receipts, bank slips, even printouts of my emails to him when I transferred money for urgent repairs. They'd kept everything, documented it like evidence. But instead of gratitude, each page was twisted into an accusation, proof of reliance. Family stability compromised. Words underlined in red pen. It wasn't an archive, it was a trap. My chest tightened, but anger rose faster than fear. I grabbed a pen and started scribbling across the margins. Dates, amounts, names, every lie attached to each withdrawal. I knew their secrets better than they did, because I'd been the one to fund their cover-ups. My handwriting carved across the paper like truth finally clawing through. At 9:12 a.m., my father called. I answered this time, just to hear his voice shake. "Briar, honey, let's not make this ugly. You're overreacting. Think about how this looks." I closed my eyes, listening to his careful tones. Always measured, always rehearsed. "You didn't think about how it looked when you slid the $5,000 tax bill to me during Thanksgiving dinner, did you?" My voice cracked, not from weakness, but from release. "You didn't care how it looked when you let me pay off a mortgage while you toasted my brother's promotion." Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "You sound unwell." That's the family script. Anyone who refuses to play along must be unwell. It's easier than admitting the truth. I hung up before he could say more. My hands shook, but not from fear anymore. From resolve. I gathered the folder, my notes, and slid them into a larger envelope. I already knew where I was going. If they wanted explanations, I would give them. Not whispered in living rooms or buried in text threads, but documented, undeniable. By 11 a.m., I stood outside the office of a lawyer whose card I'd kept tucked in my wallet for months, just in case. And for the first time, just in case felt exactly like destiny. The lawyer's office smelled of polished wood and old dust, the kind of place where truth felt heavier than air. A clock ticked with courtroom precision above the receptionist's desk, every second hammering closer to a decision I couldn't undo. When I sat across from him, Mr. Keating, grey hair slicked back, glasses perched low, his eyes scanned the folder without asking why. He'd seen stories like mine before, I could tell. Families treating one member like a vault until the lock jammed. "You've been their financial caretaker," he said, flipping through receipts like a dealer laying cards. "And now they want to claim reliance? Interesting." I leaned forward, my hands knotted together. They told me they don't want me in their life anymore. But the moment I cancelled deposits, suddenly I'm a threat to their stability. They want explanations. He looked up, eyes sharp. "Then give them one. But not in whispers. In court filings." The word struck like a bell. Court filings. My family's entire house of cards tilted in my mind. They had built everything on the assumption that I would never fight back, that silence was cheaper than conflict. But silence had already cost me too much. I signed the papers with a steady hand, each stroke cutting deeper into the script they'd written for me. We filed to document the financial exploitation, the misrepresentation, the coerced loans. Keating assured me, if they push, they'll have to answer questions they've buried for years. Walking out into the daylight, the city looked different. Brighter, almost. Like it had been waiting for me to choose myself. But peace didn't last long. By the time I returned home, my voicemail was full again. My cousin's voice, sharp and frantic. "You're destroying us, Briar. Do you even understand what you've started?" I sat on the edge of my bed, listening to the message replay. Their panic wasn't about losing me, it was about losing the money, the comfort, the silence that let them live without consequence. I pressed delete. The apartment hummed with quiet resolve. They thought they'd written me out of the family. But I was about to rewrite the ending entirely. By the end of that week, the storm had broken. Not outside, no rain, no thunder, just within the family. My filings had reached them, and suddenly the same relatives who texted "we need space" were leaving voicemails dripping with "we love you, Briar. Let's talk." Love had become currency, offered only when accounts were frozen. On Friday evening, I returned home to find a note slid under my door. Thick paper, my mother's handwriting curling like it always did across birthday cards. "We can fix this privately. Please don't drag strangers into family matters. Come to the house. Dinner Sunday." Dinner. As if one roast chicken could erase years of being their unpaid banker. Still, I stared at the note longer than I should have. Because some part of me, child-shaped, foolish, still ached for belonging. Sunday came anyway. I walked into the house I'd once called home, carrying not a casserole but copies of everything. The dining room smelled the same, lemon polish, rosemary, tension. Everyone was seated already, my father at the head, my mother with folded hands, my brother smirking like this was theater he'd directed. "Briar," my father began, his voice calm enough to belong in a courtroom. "All this, it's unnecessary. Family helps family. You've always understood that." I placed the envelope on the table, sliding it toward him. "Help," I said softly, "doesn't mean erasure. Doesn't mean exploitation." My uncle shifted in his chair, face flushing. My cousin muttered something about betrayal. My mother whispered my name like it was both a prayer and a curse. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I simply looked each of them in the eye, letting the silence do what words couldn't. Finally, I stood. "You wanted space," I reminded them, my voice steady. "This is what space looks like." And as I walked out of that dining room, the scrape of my chair echoed louder than any apology they hadn't offered. Outside, the night air clung cold against my skin. But it felt like freedom, raw, sharp, undeniable. And I knew, their house of cards was only beginning to tremble. The tremble became an earthquake faster than even I expected. By Wednesday morning, Keating called. His voice carried a kind of restrained excitement, the tone of a man who'd seen wolves finally cornered. "They've responded," he said. "But in trying to defend themselves, they've admitted to more than they realize. Tax misreporting. Transfers under false pretenses. Your brother's accounts are, let's say, compromised." I gripped the phone tighter. 4 years I'd been their safety net, the quiet fixer behind their polished appearances. Now, with the net gone, they were falling, and every lie they'd padded with my money was unraveling thread by thread. That night, I passed their house on my way home. The curtains were drawn, but voices leaked through, raised, panicked, breaking the silence of a street that once admired them. The proud family suddenly sounded like what they'd always been, desperate. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mother, short, trembling with a kind of fear she'd never let me see. "Please stop. You're ruining us." I stared at those words, and for the first time, I felt no guilt. Because the truth was simple, I hadn't ruined them. They had ruined themselves. I'd only stopped paying the bill. The next day, at work, I found myself staring out the window longer than usual. The city pulsed with life, strangers walking briskly, carrying coffees, checking watches. Nobody knew the quiet war I was fighting. Nobody knew how heavy it was to carry years of being everyone's answer until you finally became their question. That evening, Keating emailed me the official notice, court date set. Their signatures, their admissions, their panic, sealed in black ink. I sat in my living room, folder spread before me like a map of survival. My tea steamed in the quiet. And for the first time in years, my body felt weightless. They had exiled me with a text, expecting me to crawl back in desperation. Instead, I was standing taller, holding proof that their kingdom had been built on my silence. And soon, very soon, the whole world would hear the noise of their collapse. The courthouse smelled of polished marble and dust, a mixture of history and judgment. I walked in with steady steps, clutching my folder like it was armor. My heart pounded, but not with fear. This was rhythm, the drumbeat of reclaiming something they had tried to take, my worth. When my family entered, the room shifted. My father, eyes lowered. My mother, lips pressed thin as if silence could save her. My brother, trying to smirk but failing. My uncle sweating under his collar. They looked less like a dynasty and more like what they were, people cornered by the truth they had written in their own signatures. Keating rose first. His voice was calm, deliberate, like a scalpel, precise, cutting, undeniable. Each exhibit laid before the judge was another stone removed from their foundation. Transfers marked loans, tuition receipts, mortgages, vacations, all in my name, none repaid, none acknowledged. My family shifted, whispered, denied. But their denials cracked under the weight of paper. Paper doesn't lie. Paper remembers. When my turn came, I stood. My voice didn't shake. I was told I was loved, but only when money followed. I was told I belonged, but only if I paid the entry fee. I was told family takes care of its own, yet I was the one keeping them alive while they buried me in silence. The room was quiet. Even the judge leaned forward, pen paused midair. In that silence, something in me broke free. Years of being the quiet provider, the easy target, the scapegoat, they slipped away like dust shaken from old curtains. The ruling wasn't instant, but the damage was. Assets frozen. Investigations ordered. Their empire of borrowed comfort crumbled in daylight. Afterward, outside on the courthouse steps, the sun felt different on my skin. Not softer, sharper. Honest. I breathed it in, slow and certain. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my mother, only 2 words, "Come home." I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then slipped it back into my bag without replying. Home wasn't behind me anymore. It was wherever silence tasted like peace and my name didn't mean debt. For the first time, I walked away lighter.